Hello, and welcome to the wonderful world of editing by myself, Aaron de Vlieger. Today I'm going to talk about editing software, the pioneers, and ways to edit. So, what is editing? The basic explanation will be assembling the visual clips, cutting out the bits that you don't want, and put them in the right order. In the earlier days of editing, all the footage had to be edited manually, and sometimes it takes several people to do this tedious job.
As you can imagine, probably the most important section of the entire plant. Thousands of pounds worth of very valuable film is constantly being handled here with the greatest care and delicacy by experts who know their job from A to Z. In this room, for example, the film is developed, and one piece of carelessness may result in an entire reel of film being ruined. Spool after spool of film is wound and unwound, and when the development is complete, the film is then taken to the cutting rooms. The cutting rooms at Denham are extremely interesting. Tins of film are brought in and are handed over to the assistant cutters. Girl cutters work on the negative film, but the actual cutting of the film is the job of the film editors, masters of their craft who know exactly what to eliminate and what to keep in.
Nowadays, you have pre-installed editing software such as the now discontinued Windows Movie Maker and Apple's Final Cut Pro. However, the most popular editing program would be Adobe Premiere Pro. And the perfect example is here of how to edit on Adobe Premiere Pro.
Now that Premiere has loaded to this splash screen, I'm just going to click on the New Project button, and I'm going to title this Editing Basics. And I'm going to save this project in the Project Files folder of my Editing Basics project that's on the desktop. So I'm going to click on Browse, go to my desktop, Editing Basics, and my project files. The first thing you want to do is just import your footage into Premiere. So we're going to go up to File, Import, and then find the location of our media. In this case, it's on the desktop, Editing Basics, Footage, and I have this folder, Scott Pilgrim Picture Show 6/30/17. So I'm going to select all of that footage to import. I'll select the first one, scroll all the way down to the last video clip, hold down Shift and click on the last one. That will select all the footage, and I hit import. Now it's going to import all that footage for me. Now that all your footage is imported into Premiere, I like to sort it by name. That's usually not the default for some reason in Premiere when you have it in your icon view. So I'll click on this little double triangled sort icons button and click on name. It's going to sort all of my footage by the name. Usually that's the order in which they were filmed, so it gives me a better way of grouping all of my footage. So the easiest way to start editing your footage is just by clicking and dragging them over onto the timeline over here. The timeline is where you're going to build your edit, your final video. So what it's actually done behind the scenes is created a new timeline. You'll see a duplicate here, what looks like a duplicate of the footage, but it actually has a little sequence icon here. And what we can do is just simply single click on the name, and then instead of naming it exactly the same name as the clip, we'll just name it Scott Pilgrim Picture Show, the name that we want our actually final video to be named. I'll hit return, and now we have a project that's just Scott Pilgrim Picture Show with our clip inside of it. And now we can just start adding more clips. So say we want this one to be next, and then finally this clip. Once we have all of our footage that we want on the timeline, or at least our first few shots, I'm going to show you how to use simply two tools to start editing. The first one is the selection tool. The shortcut is V, and this is the most basic kind of tool in Premiere. So if you want to move a clip from left to right, and actually if you want to shorten a clip, you can use the selection tool. The way that you do that is in Premiere, a lot of the tools are context sensitive, meaning they will change depending on what you are hovering over. So if I hover over the beginning of this clip, you'll see that it turns into a little bracket with an arrow next to it pointing right. That means I'm able to start trimming the beginning of this clip. So I can click and drag to the right, and now I am trimming the beginning of this clip. Maybe I want to trim it to the beginning of the shot where there's a little bit of movement. And you see I even get a little bit of a preview of where that shot is going to start.
Also, editing in different ways can change how the audience perceive how the story should be. And no better example that I could find is the film editing of the motion picture Arrival.
Victor, 113 Apple, take one.
Attention. Shadow. And frame. Background action and action.
It's their language. They gave it all to us. Do you know what that means?
So we can learn heptapod, if we survive.
If you learn it, when you really learn it, you begin to perceive time the way that they do. But time, it isn't the same for them. It's non-linear.
Time is the editor's superpower. You can jet between different time frames. You can expand a moment to make it feel slower. You can make things hurry. You can skip great big steps, and it gives some satisfaction to the audience when they know where you're going to jump there. And here we had sort of two parallel stories to sort of merge together.
Okay. Come back to me. Come back to me.
Scene 3, take one, tail slate.
That stuff was very free, where we put it in the film and what story we told with it and how long we dwelt on it.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Judge. Bravo, bravo. That's the end for the part.
Of course, non-linear time is a huge element of the story, and it's also a huge element of editing. Editors dance with actors in a funny way because we're removed from set, but yet we're breathing with them and we're feeling with them. I mean, we had outstanding performances to work with as a given, but when you put together a film, sometimes you need to change the nuance of things, and sometimes a scene that feels to you like a perfect cut of a scene, actually you need to kind of remodel it a little bit and, you know, take down the temperature of an argument or raise the temperature of an argument because you need more impact or less impact at that point. And it's only when you see the whole thing mapped out that you can make that judgment.
The first breakthrough was to discover that there's no correlation between what a heptapod says and what a heptapod writes. Unlike all written human languages, their writing is semisiographic. It conveys meaning. It doesn't represent sound.
Halfway through the film, there's almost a documentary section, which is the things we know about heptapods. And it sort of departs from the normal course of events to go into voiceover. And that did a job of telling us everything we need to know about heptapods, but it managed to compress about 5 or 6 scenes into one.
I mean, I've had a few dreams, but I don't think that makes me unfit to do this job.
The nightmare scene, it was just one of the most glorious moments in the cutting room where actually an accident creates something really good. Originally there was a scripted acted scene that was had 3 characters in a Winnebago, and it was part of a sort of piece of tubing that we felt that we could remove from the story. At that point in the story we wanted to get a wiggle on. So we took it out, and then we realized that there's an essential piece of information in there concerning the Sapir-Whorf theory, and we felt that it was a vital ingredient in the film, and if we didn't say it there, we wouldn't be saying it.
It's the theory that the language you speak determines how you think, and...
Yeah. I'm curious. Are you dreaming in their language?
In an attempt to try and see how can we cut this scene in the shortest and most economical way, we just bashed together some sections of it. And for example, the first cut was from Ian to Ian, a really ugly jump cut. I mean, something so overtly wrong. His head is down, his head is up, and he's talking. And it was just the accident you have when you're just throwing things together. And then suddenly that gave us an idea that we could tell the scene a different way. It was just a very lovely, spontaneous moment with director and editor and VFX all coming together.
First ever film was made by Auguste Lumière and Louis Lumière, better known as Lumière brothers. The film was called The Arrival of a Train. It was a continuous shot narrative and lasted approximately 30 seconds. The first ever science fiction film was called A Trip to the Moon and was made by Paris-born director Georges Méliès. The film lasted no longer than 20 minutes and contained surreal and continued editing.